Howdy, 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 and welcome to the Red Dirt Aggie Show. I'm Brian, aka the Red Dirt Aggie, and we're here live on Texas Music Tuesday with our guest Garrett Smith, fighting Texas Aggie. And Garrett, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself?
Well, howdy, Ags. Like I said, Garrett Smith, fighting Texas Aggie class of 2015, but I'm a little older than that because I was actually working on my master's when I was at A&M. So, yeah, I'm happy to be here. I'm a Texas artist. I don't really call myself a Texas country artist because if you heard my last album, it was just straight up rock and roll. But yeah, a musician, Texas musician, we'll put it that way. So yeah, I'm excited to do this.
Well, yeah, man, we're excited to have you for sure. And if y'all haven't, check out. He's got a music video out on YouTube that I think a lot of you can relate to if you're an Aggie called Northgate Nights. I loved it, so
I appreciate it.
But what really made you or inspired you to become a musician, to start getting into music?
So music's always kind of been a part of who I am and what I've been working on at any given time. So I was a band nerd in high school.
Same.
I was. What'd you play?
Trumpet.
Nice. I was a tuba player. So
Nice.
my thing was, if I'm going to get PE credits for being in band, I better like carry something big. Like that was my mentality. So I was like,
Yeah.
it's either going to be bass drum or tuba. So yeah, I lugged one of those things around on my shoulder for 4 years, and to this day, this shoulder's a little bigger than this one because of it. Fun fact. But yeah, after that college, I kind of put it away for a while, but I still had a keyboard in my room. So I would write little songs every now and then just for myself. I never like recorded them or anything. And then it got to the point where I was in an apartment with some other dudes, and we'd bring out the keyboard and guitars, and we would write songs to roast people. So people would come over to our apartment, or the next day if they'd had a wild time, and we'd write a song to tell them what they did the day before. And it was that's kind of where it kept going. But after college, what really kickstarted me writing music was when I was in college, I was one of the I did my undergraduate at Mary Hardin Baylor in Belton, Texas, and it's a Division III college. But I was one of the guys that they called the couch crew captains for an organization that has since been canceled. It was too hot to handle. But we were essentially the yell leaders of a Division III school. And so we would travel a lot. And so the year after college, when I wasn't traveling or making music or anything, I thought, I miss traveling, I miss making memories with friends, and I haven't made music in a while. And so after I got done reading Slash's autobiography... Do what?
So you're like, how can I combine those things?
Right, yeah. I missed all of those. And I read Slash's autobiography that same year, and then I read Duff McKagan's books. I am a diehard Guns N' Roses fan. And when I read Duff's book, he was the bassist in that band, or it is the bassist in that band. And he talked a lot about, getting back into good physical shape, because I was kind of sluggish that year after college. And he talked a lot about, anxiety and ways that he channeled things through music, and I was like, man, I really need to just kind of combine all this. So it all came together. I started writing songs, started testing some songs out with some people, and I spent about 2 years writing some really cheesy, awful songs, and then it progressed to writing some that weren't as cheesy, and then just kind of went from there. And so, yeah, fast forward to when I was at A&M. So it was about 5 years later, I was at A&M, and I had all these songs written up. And the goal was never for me to be the musician. It was never going to be my name on the music. It was a friend of mine was actually going to be the singer. We were trying to put together, and let me remind everyone, this was before Co-Etzel, before Geo and the Hired Guns, before people were doing the rock and roll and country thing. So Ragweed was about as heavy as it got, and Ragweed had just gone on hiatus, and so I was like, well, I want to write rock music with country lyrics, and everybody told me I was nuts. And there happened to be a studio that was running a deal in town right about the time it was going to all be recorded. Well, the singers all kept quitting. Guitar players would last 2 or 3 rehearsals, and I finally got mad. And I was like, my phobia is singing in front of people, and I hate my voice, but I'm going to go do it. And so with no training, no practice whatsoever, I walked in with like 12 songs, and we recorded about 3 of them. And studio called me up, and it was Revive 45 in Bryan, Texas. And it was run by 2 Aggies, and I got a call saying, hey, if you don't tell anyone in town that we're cutting you this deal, we'll just keep you at the same rate, and we'll do the rest of your album. So I was doing like $100 a song, which is unheard of. You can't even get an hour for that in most places. And unfortunately, I didn't know how to sing yet. So anyone that heard the pre-edit of the album's called A Long Time Coming in 2016. I sounded like I had a sinus infection throughout the whole thing. Guitar playing, and this isn't a diss on the guy that played the guitar or produced it. It was just the sounds were too clean and too thin because I didn't know how to tell him what I wanted. And so what was supposed to be like a hard rock country album was really just kind of like, okay, this is different. And so I did 2 albums. And thankfully in 2021, I went down to San Antonio, a place called Stone Creek Sound, and worked with a guy named Gabe Garces. And I redid vocals on almost all of it. And so on Spotify and Apple Music and all that, if you go to Volume 1 and 2, that's really my older albums. I just re-sang them. So the ones we just put out are Volume 3 and 4, and those are ones that I played all the instruments on except for 2 songs. And so,
nice. Okay.
Yeah, Danny Doesn't Know was a full group effort on the recording, and then the Rebecca, that was several people playing, but all the rest of them were 100% me.
That's awesome.
With a couple of guitars.
That's pretty cool that you're able to play like all the instruments too, and it's not every day now where some people just sing, some people just it's tough to be able to do all of it.
Oh yeah.
So that makes it
tough
more
to be able to do any of it.
Yeah, really. I can imagine.
But I could not play all those parts live. I'm a bass player by trade, so if you handed me the Les Paul guitar that I use and said, "Hey, do this live," I would struggle.
But among all that, what's your favorite part of creating music, of the whole music creating process?
The release of energy, I would say, because I'll be driving down the road and I'll just get like a little jingle in my head or like a guitar riff. So even though I'm not a guitar player per se, that's usually what pops in my head is like, oh, this would sound really cool. Or, having a song in my head that someone else wrote. Maybe the rhythm of that song gets stuck in my head, but I can put another tune on it and be like, and just transform it into a whole new thing. And so, it's almost like when you get a song in your head and you just wish you could get rid of it. It's like getting rid of songs in your head, except they're ones that made themselves up. So, most of my music writes itself musically, and then it's the lyrics are the part that I really have to sit down and focus on. So I would say just a creative outlet. Yeah, that's the most fun part of creating it.
Yeah. And what would you say is the most difficult or hardest part of being a musician through any part of the process, whether it's any part of touring or creating the music itself, perfecting it, performing? Just what would you say is the most difficult thing for you?
The most difficult is humans. The second most difficult is money. I would say
good answers.
Yeah, like every musician knows, you call a venue and they're like, "Oh, the manager will call you back." They're not calling you back. You basically have to hire somebody on to book shows for you. I've been self-booking for so long; it burns you out. But I would, and then you get musicians on board, and I don't mean this towards my current band, but I mean anyone that's had bands with different lineups can tell you it's reliability. Guitar players are a dime a dozen, but they all think they're Eddie Van Halen. It's the egos that get stirred into all that and the flakiness. It'll wear you down after a while.
Right.
And then money, because nothing in music is cheap. I've been blessed to get some really good deals in recording, even on my latest albums, and it's still a pretty penny, no matter how cheap you make it. And so I've been learning a lot of production skills, so that possibly the next batch I do I could self-produce. Which that's nothing against it. Like again, anyone that's produced my work, for Volume 3 and 4, I had it mixed by an elementary school friend out in Virginia, and it was really cool to get to like reunite. Not really in person, but we got to reunite and work on that together. So that was a lot of fun.
Yeah,
but
that's awesome.
I'm trying to get to a point where I'm autonomous and can just throw music out whenever I want.
That's pretty. Yeah, that's always better than dropping it whenever you're ready to release it. You control the whole process. That's gonna be better in the end. And I guess it would be expensive to set something up like that, but then save you money in the long run if you're going to keep going with it.
Absolutely.
Not having to pay for all those sessions.
I was told by AJ Gale the other day that I should go into production work because I sent a demo to AJ Gale and Vanessa Lynn Bird. those two artists, I would tell every one of your listeners to go listen to them. That's a little plug I'll make.
Well, you heard it. Go listen to him.
Go listen to AJ Gell. That's Guel. And don't ask him what his favorite order at the chicken is, especially if you bring up T-fries. And Vanessa Lynn Bird out in Nashville. But we bounce ideas almost daily and send jokes about each other and other artists back and forth a lot. And so I sent that to him, and it's a song called Eileen that I'll put on my next batch. But I joked, I said, watch, I just spent all that time and effort for 5 years to put out volume 3 and 4, and now I wrote a new song that's better than all of it. And yeah, and they were like, yeah, this is pretty good, you should put this out there. So who knows, maybe the next song you hear is Eileen. But yeah, it's just nice it's always good to improve your work. You know, you don't ever want to put an album or song out there that's like, well, it's not quite as good as the first one. You know, you got those famous bands that can't get past, you know, the success of their old stuff. I'd rather be the guy that gets better each time.
Continuous improvement.
Well, my first album set the bar pretty low, so I paved the way for success on that.
I feel like that's probably how it goes more often than not. It's just that there occasionally, though, there does come to artists, you know, where people just are in love with their first couple albums, and then they venture like so far to a different direction. People are like, "Whoa, what is this? This is what you normally do," you know. But
my favorite band is the worst about it. I mean, Guns N' Roses. You know, the bulk of their concert and the money they make's off that Appetite for Destruction album in 1986. You know, they haven't even put out a new record in 14 years. It's ridiculous.
I guess they don't need to.
No, I guess not.
Money wise,
get that money.
But who are some of your biggest influences or favorite artists right now in the we'll say in the Texas music scene?
Texas music scene. That's a good question, because my influences are split between country and rock. And the song I put out on Volume 3 called Tennessee Brown, there's a line in that song where it says, I like my rock and roll 80s and my country music 90s. Basically, all my influences are either from Texas country artists, 90s country artists, or 80s rockers. That's kind of the trifecta of where it comes from. So from the Texas music scene, I was, you know, from the very beginning, Kevin Fowler. I grew up in Amarillo, and that's where he grew up. And so whether it's getting a Buc-ee's or something like that, you know, usually Amarillo's behind the rest of Texas by about 5 to 10 years on things. And so Texas country was already starting to make its way. Pat Green was starting to carve the scene back in the early 2000s and late 90s even. And so I'm related to Pat Green. He's a distant cousin of my dad's. I've only met him once, but you know, outside of that, it's like there weren't many names other than maybe Krager. And so Kevin Fowler popped up, and Amarillo actually picked up on that about the same time as everybody else because he was from there. And so I before I was even out of high school, I followed Kevin Fowler's work and what he did, because every album he's done sounds different than the one before, but it's still good. Yeah. And Cross Canadian Ragweed. Oh yeah, he's a great performer.
Yeah.
And Cross Canadian Ragweed. I mean, I was a 4-H guy, you know. So you go to those 4-H roundups. It's all, you know. Back then, Ragweed ran the scene. And I'm still a huge fan of Cody Canada and Jeremy Plato. As a bassist, you know, I get frustrated watching Plato because I think Rob White mentioned on this show, you know, a lot of people would argue Plato is the best, and I would double on that and say, yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
And Cody Canada's got one of the most unique voices. So I've learned a lot from just watching them. And I'm a fan of Grady Cross and Randy Ragsdale, too. I don't think they get nearly enough credit.
Right.
And that's not to diss The Departed. You know, I'm a fan of them, too. It's just you can tell the difference in little things in the music when you listen hard enough, including drumming. And so I'm a big fan of those guys. So, yeah, I would say when it comes to Texas country, that's a lot of the influence I've had, you know, and I'll throw the rock side in as well. It's just GNR, Scorpions, Motley Crue, AC/DC, you know, all of that.
But now you know the big dividing question: do beans belong in chili?
The controversy. Do beans belong in chili? You know, I knew this was coming, and even before you gave me the heads up that you were going to ask this, I kind of wondered. So I don't know if this is more controversial than other people's answers, or if it's just lame. I don't care one way or the other. So I am like, I put a Texas flag on my mic stand. Yeah, like I am Texas forever. I'm more Texan than I am American, but I will say my thing is the flavor. If you've got no beans, but it's just acidic or it's soupy, that's boring. Why? But if it has beans and also has a kick to it, I'm going with the beans. So
yeah,
to me, the flavor is the deciding factor. Same thing with gumbo. Yeah, so I'll get two states controversies in mixed together.
And what would you say your wildest Aggie related memory from your time in college?
Oh boy,
or just
I'll give you two, because one of them blends the music with the Aggie aspect, and the other one is just crazy. There was a night at Northgate. A friend of mine was coming back to town. He graduated from A&M, and without getting too personal into the details as to why he was in town, other than I'll just say there was a breakup involved. He is the reason we wrote back from California, and I took him to Northgate. So it was this guy and my wife and maybe my cousin and I were all out at Northgate.
Right.
And he was on a rebound tear that night, and it was hilarious. Like, he got one girl's number going up to the corner, the rooftop bar, for those who are not familiar with Northgate. And while we're up there, the girl's walking by the bar. He takes his cowboy hat off, puts it on her. She keeps walking. She's taking selfies with it, gets the number of the bartender, then goes and takes a picture with the girl that has his hat, gets her number. And my wife and I are watching. We're just cracking up. And because of that, he and I brainstormed the concepts for Back from California, Dirty South, and We Go Hard. Now, Dirty South and We Go Hard are the two dumbest songs I've ever written, and I'll be honest, I don't even like either of those songs, but Back from California was pretty good. So thanks to that wild night at Northgate, we have 3 songs on that first album. But the other crazy one is almost got a fight, and it was the weirdest thing. So when they did the demolition at Kyle Field, it was freezing cold. I don't know if you were there, but it was freezing cold outside. And there's a pretty decent-sized crowd at the Reed Arena parking lot waiting, and we're standing there, and I'm just standing with 2 other grad students, and we're talking, and some guy walks up, and he's just mad. He's like, "You're blocking my wife's view. Get out of the way," and all this stuff. We're like, "Okay, dude, like, whatever." So we walk away, and we don't think anything of it. So we start laughing about something. We're not even talking about the guy. He thinks we're laughing at him or his wife. And this guy, now keep in mind, he was probably 40 to 50 years older than we were. And so if a fight broke out, it wasn't going to go well, but you could tell he was mad. And he starts raising his voice. We're just waiting on the implosion. We rode in on bikes. We don't want anything to do with whatever's going on. So we're like, dude, we're just here to watch the implosion. And he gets up in my friend's face, and my friend was a military vet, and I was like, oh, this is not going to go. So finally, I was like, you got to leave. And finally, he starts to he backs up, and he starts to come forward again. So I grab his shoulder, I turn him around, and kind of give him a push, and I was like, you need to go. And he turns around and starts cussing me out. It's like, I'll beat your right here, and by this point, there's 20 or 30 Aggies around us watching, laughing, and I finally, I clap back and go, hit me, and then you can take turns with the other 20 who are ready to go. He turns around, and he didn't want to admit he was kind of cornered, but he just kind of looks at him, he's like, don't do it again, and walks off. The whole relief on that was, if you fight an old man and you win, you look like a jerk for beating up an old man. If you lose, you look like a wimp for losing to an old man.
But he's the one being the jerk there too. That's what stinks.
It's true, but there's just there's no winning in that situation. And I'll be honest, it was like 20 degrees outside, and I could tell I was like warming up my fist just in case. I thought, dude, if you even like flick a fly right now, it's gonna hurt. It's so cold out here. Like, if I have to punch this dude, it's not gonna be fun. Yeah. But no, he left us alone, and then I saw him in public later, and I got kind of uncomfortable, and I don't think he knew he didn't recognize me, so it was fine. But College Station's big, but it can be small when you don't need it to.
Yeah, always at the worst times.
Yeah. So those are probably my 2 craziest moments. But if you were to ask some of the other grad students, they'd probably say it was when I put a bunch of chairs on somebody's roof at a Mardi Gras party and left, because I was only there for about 20 minutes, stone cold sober, but there were a few drunk people there, and I knew they'd take the blame, so I just kind of did that to mess with them.
Oh, that's funny. But did you ever spend any time at Harry's when you were back in College Station?
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
Before I was actually enrolled, I spent a lot of time at the Hall of Fame too. Well, not a lot of time. I only went 2 or 3 times actually, but I liked the Hall. I think my parents went there, I think, on their first date. So it was, I was really sad when that closed down. I was a part of a team that was looking to open like a second incarnation of it, but that wasn't, in hindsight, it was not a good idea, and I kind of backed out of that thing. So let's not do this. But the Harry's aspect, that was a lot of fun going there because we were graduate students, but we could still have fun no matter how many undergrads were there. We made the most of our time as grad students, and I'll give a shout out to Kristen Roof and Brian Pfeiffer are 2 people that Brian kind of led the tailgates for grad students, and Kristen was the founder of the AGPCC, the Aggie Graduate and Professional Community Club. And it was more of a social club than anything. So it would just be like, okay, this Thursday we're going here, next Thursday we're going there, and so we went to Harry's quite a few times with that group, and that was actually my friend group that I had through A&M. My first time to really go hang out with them was at Harry's, and I think the most vivid memory I have of Harry's was, and granted we know how this played out later, but they made the announcement that Kyler Murray committed to play for A&M. And they cut the song right then and jumped right into the war hymn. And so all of Hurricane Harry's did the Aggie war hymn. No idea that he was going to transfer to
but...
another state, but that's all right.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
But do you have a particular favorite song that you have ever written?
I get asked that a lot. It's weird. I can tell you my least favorite, but it's hard to pick the favorite. Right. Songs are like your children, Some might disappoint you more than others, but you love them all the same. So I would say lyrically, I think Panhandle Wind resonates with the most people who are from the Texas Panhandle. If you're not from there, it's just name dropping a bunch of towns you don't know. But if you're from the Panhandle, I would say that one. And one time I got kind of frustrated trying to promote it. Radio won't play it because it's more than 5 minutes. And I told somebody, I was like, when you think of Panhandle songs, Kevin Fowler's Panhandle Poor Boy is probably the top. I would say my Panhandle Wind song is right there next to it. And I told somebody I think it's better than No Handle, which kind of raised some eyebrows. Like, can you say that? I'm like, I said it. So I would say Panhandle Wind lyrically. To play live, Just One Look. It's a slow song. And yet it's the one slow song we'll throw into the middle of our fast ones that, for some reason, the crowd always kind of nods along, gets into it, dances to it. I think that one has the best effect at shows. And then instrumentally, I would have to say the song Tops Off, which, if anyone asks, it's about Jeeps and Kool-Aid. Because for me, playing each of the instruments, that required me to practice more and get better. It's a metal song. I mean, there's no way to sugarcoat it. It's a metal song with some country lyrics on it, and I had a lot of fun with it. So I would say that one.
What would you say is the what about your favorite live concert or show that you've ever been to, that you've ever seen?
Oh man. So I will throw a quick brag out there. My first concert was Willie Nelson in the Astrodome the last year that it was around. But I would say this one's kind of a toss-up between 3 different ones for 3 different reasons. First was there's a band from Ohio called Foxy Shazam, and they kind of have a cult following in every state, so they do really well, but they're not like one of the big names. So my wife and I went to go see Slash with Miles Kennedy a few years ago in Austin, and Foxy Shazam was the opener. We didn't know who to look at. Like, the lead singer is doing backflips. They have a trumpet player who's throwing his trumpet in the air, and then
one of those high energy, like,
oh my gosh, yeah, they're like dirty dancing on the amps on stage and stuff. I mean, it was hilarious, and you just didn't know who to watch. And the lead singer sounds like Freddie Mercury. I mean, it's just the weirdest. If you're listening to this, get on YouTube, type in Foxy Shazam, and just watch one of their music videos. It's their shows are even weirder. So that was cool. The other, I would say, Motley Crue, back on what was supposed to be their final tour. Getting to see them. This is before they did everything on backing tracks. So getting to see them while Mick Mars was still in the band. The one night Vince Neil actually sounded really great on that tour. I mean, everything that could have gone right went right. And so getting to see Motley Crue that way was really cool. And the pyrotechnics and everything were just great. And then I would say that the third and the tie for 3, getting to see Guns N' Roses once Slash and Duff are back in the band.
Yeah.
That was cool.
What about the coolest venue that you yourself have ever played at?
I would say Redneck Country Club in Stafford. I got to put an asterisk on this. It wasn't my gig. I was doing a acoustic opening for Rich O'Toole for his birthday bash. But it's a really cool room. You got
Yeah.
let me see that again. There you go.
We had him on episode 4. He was our first guest.
Oh, nice. Yeah, I heard that episode. I didn't realize he was the first guest on there, but he was on my podcast as well, and I'll mention him again here in a bit. But he's been pretty influential on my music journey. But getting open for him, hang out with him in the green room, Redneck Country Club in Stafford, best green room a musician can be in. It's almost like a little hotel suite, and because trust me, I've played some really bad green rooms.
Yeah,
but no, Michael Berry, he's a big radio personality in Houston, and he owns the place, and it's like bright and clean and no smoking, and it's just no problems at that place. So it was a really cool. If I ever opened my own venue, I would want it to be like that.
Yeah. And moving forward with that, what's your ultimate goal for your career as a musician, if you have one, or if you know?
Fantastic question, because it has changed a bit. So, a lot of people keep telling, chase your dreams, become the big name, or whatever. Well, I'm not out to win a Grammy. I never was. My goal from day one was to always have a place to play on a Friday night, to make people's weekend, and to have fun doing it. Yeah. I've played a lot of shows. I've never been in a position where there's no shortage, but since COVID, no musician has had a guarantee every Friday night. So That's not a bump on myself. That's just a reality check. But as a lot of people know who are probably watching this, I made a kind of a bombshell announcement last week that I am taking a hiatus from live music. Now, I want to make sure everybody knows I'm not quitting music. I'm still recording. I've already got 10 songs prepped. So
you're still
for the next
putting out
release.
New music. Music's not done. It's just the touring side of it.
Well, it's kind of one of those things like, let's say you're a runner, but you never stop to catch your breath. You're not going to be a very good runner. So, the music is not my 8 to 5, and weirdly, I would say it's a blessing. It'd be great if it was, but when it is, you can't handle things like COVID hitting, and you can't take a break from the road. And so, I'm a new dad. I'm trying to wrap up my training for my 8 to 5 that I've been doing for 2 years. I actually work for my dad, and so I'm training with his real estate appraisal business, and just for his sake, I want to get done so he doesn't have to worry about training me, and he can just hurry up and retire,
Yeah.
So this gives me more time to get that out of the way. But you see a lot of times where musicians get busy, they start a family, all this, and they kind of taper away. And I want to be straightforward with people and say, I'm not tapering away. I'll be back at some point. I just don't know if it's going to be a year from now, 2 years, 10 years, whenever it is. I want to come back with a lot newer music to play, a much better show to put on, and a much more reliable schedule of shows. Because you look at anybody right now, whether the big timers or even some smaller timers who are good, they always have that, what Spider-Man called the man in the chair. They've got somebody behind them booking shows, getting them out there, promoting them. And I've been doing too much by myself for too long. I mean, we've even been playing shows sized down. We've got shows where the songs have 5 or 6 guitar layers on them, but we're playing it like ZZ Top with one guitar player, one bassist, and one drummer. And, we added a dancer to the band, and she's great. She stole the show at spring break. But our drummer had to leave for some business opportunities and some other things. I got a couple people asking me, did your drummer quit on you? I'm like, well, not like that. No, it was a very amicable split. He'll be back for the farewell concert. So all is good in the neighborhood. It's just, and I got to give a shout out, Austin Stone, the guy who's been playing drums with me for a couple of years, Reese Henry on guitar, and Taylor Amanza, our dancer. Good little group, but we had some big plans coming up, for what the coming year was supposed to look like before the gig drought happened. And the gig drought's hitting a lot of artists, not just me. It's a lot of people that you don't expect it to hit, they're struggling. And I went to a Moonshine Bandits concert. I listened to a lot of hip hop. That's my guilty pleasure, folks. And so I went to a Moonshine Bandits concert, and just the way they made their show for the veterans and first responders, but also the outlaws. And when I say outlaw, I don't mean some kid with a guitar saying, I'm outlaw country. I mean, there were 1% patches on vests in that bar, and they were fist bumping the guys on stage. And, we had a moment where we were going to play the song Better Than You, Red, White, Blue, and Better Than You, and we were going to honor our veterans in the room. We were going to do, I have a song called So Do I. It's like a rockin' Southern rock song, but if you really listen to the lyrics, you can tell it's about Jesus. And so I was just going to tell people, I'm not preaching at y'all tonight, but if you got something you could use a little prayer support for, just drop in the tip box, or the tip jar, I got you. Just little things like that to make it more interactive. The dancers were actually going to two-step with somebody during Give It Two Steps. It was just, we want to turn our shows into an interactive party with the audience, not just a show where people are eating a burger and they're tuning out the music. Like, when you go to a Garrett Smith show, you get involved. And that will be what happens, when there's a return of the band. But for now, if you want to see that, you got to be in Temple, Texas on June 2nd to take in the last show.
But what would you say is your opinion on how would you categorize your music? I know you mentioned it earlier a little bit, but would you say that your music is Red Dirt? Would you say it's just Texas music? Is it some country? Is it rock? Or is it some mixture of all of those?
Yeah, it's a mixture, because it's when I very first started, I was just going to be Texas country artist, but then you listen to the music, it's like, it's not really what all this is. I have Red Dirt songs, Bell County Breakdown, Highway Song, Panhandle Wind. Those are straight up Red Dirt. I have some more upbeat country, like the song Rebecca, but really what it's turning into is the majority of what I write now is rock. And so instead of Red Dirt, I say it's more like rock music for rednecks. It's just no real direction with it, because I was this close to being a part of a side project. Well, I was a part of a side project called Chasing Bonnie, which was named after Bonnie McMurray from Letterkenny, and it was a group of songwriters from Corpus. It really is, allegedly, Corpus, Houston, and here. And so the plan was we were each going to write 4 songs. We would record them together, and then we would just do shows in our hometowns. And so I wrote my 4, and that's as far as it went. And so everybody got busy. It's like, oh, we're just not going to do this. So I've had these songs sitting on my computer for however many years and nothing to do with them. And I thought, well, I'll take all my discards that I've never done anything with and write a few new ones, and I'll slap that out as a volume 5 at some point. And so some of those are very twangy country, and some of them are kind of like metal. So it's going to be a definitely hodgepodge that nobody really knows where it's going. But the cool thing about not being a part of a record label is you can do whatever you want.
Do what you want, yeah.
And that's what, do you want to get signed? I'm like, I don't necessarily want to.
Yeah.
But if anyone out there is looking to sign me, I'm not going to tell you no.
I'm not seeking you, but if you seek me.
Right. And that's like, so, I definitely want to record some of that soon. And, you were asked a second ago what my ultimate goal is. I would say recording and eventually playing again is a goal. Like, I have every intention of coming back. I would be lying if I knew when, and I don't want to mislead anybody and say, yep, I'm done forever, or, yeah, I'll be back soon, because neither one of those statements is true.
Right, because you don't really know yet. But
no clue.
Yeah. And you have that music video out, Northgate Nights. Can you tell us a little bit about the production of that, or where the idea came from? I mean, obviously spending a night at Northgate, but want to dive in that a little more.
Absolutely. So music videos are fun, and so one of the things I'll be doing instead of playing live is we have plans for several music videos.
Oh, nice.
Been working on one to Party Out Back. It's been hard to get it scheduled, but we're working on it. Excuse me. And so before I get into Northgate Nights, I'll tell you my other music video is Port Aransas. And a lot of people who are in that are Aggies. So I think Aggies can relate. If you went to A&M and you were on spring break in 2019, you might be in my video. But I will say everyone who's in my video signs a waiver form saying that they're good to be in it. Even if it looks like I just filmed them at random, what I would do is as soon as I click stop on the record, I'd chase them down and be like, if y'all are okay with that, And usually I had the permission in advance. So Port Aransas was that way, and it was a lot of fun just learning how to record a music video. It took 2 trips down to the coast. One of them, it was 50% chance of rain, and the skies are gray as I was on the ferry coming to the island, so we didn't know if it was going to work. It's a weird video, and I've never said this publicly, but if you watch the Port Aransas video and you watch closely, you'll notice that sometimes my jeans are baggy and sometimes they're not. It's not two pairs of jeans. I actually lost a bunch of weight in between the two shoots. And you'll notice like the hat changes. I moved during that, and one of my hats was still in the box. So it went from felt to plastic back. Or, I mean, not plastic. It went felt to straw back to felt in the middle of it. And I'm like, I don't care how weird this looks. You know, half the people at spring break are dressed like they just got out of bed anyway. So I'm just going to go with it. But no, it's not two pairs of jeans. I just lost weight. Northgate Nights was, that was a fun one to do. I got almost all of it done in one shoot, but did have to make a return trip. It was tiring though. So I got down there, and
what year was that filmed in too, if you don't mind?
What was it?
What year was that filmed in Northgate Nights?
This past fall.
Okay.
Yeah. So
I was just wondering.
Yeah, I went down there. So I went the night that Robert Earl Keen was playing his last show to open Aggie Park, and so I was going to kill two birds with one stone. And the original video had clips from Midnight Yell and the Robert Earl Keen show in there, but I was not allowed to use those. I checked with the school just to be sure. I didn't want to make anybody mad at A&M, and I thought because Midnight Yell was such a hot topic this past year for some stupid reason, and Twitter didn't know how to handle tradition, which is why we're better than everybody else. And so I was like, I want to put this in there, you know, controversy. Well, I was politely told no. You know, to the school's credit, they wished me luck. They wanted, you know, they said, we really hope this works out. It sounds cool. Plus, you know, the school probably don't want to be tied to Northgate, and I totally get that. The reason I wrote that song, because I wrote it several years ago, was I wanted to write a song about A&M. It's important to me. But you know, Roger Krager's done it. Dub Miller's done that. Granger Smith has done that. Robert Earl Keen's done it. They've all done that, and they're all great songs. But I'm like, I don't want to. You know, if it's not as good as theirs, then that's all people will say about the song, and they won't even listen to it. So I was like, let me write one about Northgate, because nobody's done that yet. And so I wrote about Northgate, and it was about 5 years ago. All the music videos we have planned that we're working on now were planned probably close to 5 years ago. And so that includes Party Out Back, Northgate Nights. And I was like, I'm going to go to Northgate and just get some crowd footage. So 2022 rolls around, and it's like, I'm going to do it. So I went down there, and it felt creepy at first walking around with the camera, because you got to get over that initial, like, okay, this feels weird. People don't know what you're doing. They see the clipboard. I was almost asked to leave Shiner Park because they saw the clipboard, and they thought I was one of the street preachers protesting, and they thought I was coming in with a petition. And I had to show them what it was. And on the way out, I showed them the signatures, like, thank y'all so much, you know. So nobody really knows how to read that. And because of that, I get anxious. But once you talk to the first couple of people, you don't feel weird anymore. And so, yeah, I've got a beard, but thankfully I look younger than my age. So I was able to kind of pull off going to Northgate before and after Midnight Yell. But I did have some people ask me, you know, what year are you? And I'm like, okay, good. I feel very young for a 35-year-old. People thought I was 19. No greater compliment. So I went down, and we just got all this footage, all those clips you see in the video were people that I asked them, would y'all be okay with being in a video? And they're like, yeah, let's do it. And it was a lot of fun, and I had to, the places I filmed indoors, like I filmed indoors at the Dixie Chicken, I had to get permission for that, and I won't out the individual, but I was like, yo, I got a picture of the trough. Is that cool? They're like, we'll just play like we don't know, and hope no one says anything. But all of that was really fun. The thing that wasn't fun was I went down there, I filmed, then went to Midnight Yell, and I got invited. So some of the people who are playing cards in the Dixie Chicken in the video, they were alumni from the Aggie Band, and they invited me to go stand with the Aggie Band at Midnight Yell. So we actually marched in with the Aggie Band. Got to go to Midnight Yell with them, which if y'all think going to Midnight Yell is a trip, go to Midnight Yell with the Aggie Band. It's like being in a cult within the cult. It's great. And so I went back to Northgate afterwards, and shout out to those BQs. Appreciate y'all. And went back, and so afterwards was when I got the good footage, because by then everybody was really having a good time and hyped up. And the problem was, I witnessed a fight, and a dude got knocked out cold on the sidewalk as I was leaving. I'm walking around the corner, I see the police just sitting there on their bikes. I'm like, I hate to ruin y'all's night, but you got one knocked out unconscious back there. And the dude brought it on himself, but he still hoped he was okay. I get back to my hotel at 4 a.m. So I've been at this for hours. I get up the next morning, I go to Fuego, I get my breakfast, and then I go to the game. And some people were like, well, at what point did you know it was going to be a bad Aggie football season? I was like, dude, 2 drives into the Sam Houston game. I was in the zone, you know, and it's shoulder to shoulder. It's humid. We're playing like crap. And I'm around a bunch of Sam Houston fans.
It rained at that game, too, didn't it? Didn't it rain?
It was, I don't know if it did in the second. It was muggy for sure. Yeah, it rained right at halftime. Mm-hmm. Well, it was just muggy at this point. So you could smell everybody, and it was just nasty. And every Sam Houston fan on the row in front, on our row, and behind couldn't read their tickets. Like, it was rocket science. And they kept, like, rearranging and trying to get around. And I finally got fed up. I was like, I'm going to sneak into the other end zone. So I went and I waited till the usher wasn't watching. I moseyed my way up. I had all the shoulder room in the world. But watching that game, that first half, I'm like, I think I've seen enough. So I left. After the band marched, I left. And I found out as I was leaving there, had a rain delay. I drove an hour and a half home to Temple, Texas before they even got the third quarter going.
Yep.
And so I was able to watch it at home. But then I turned around the next morning and actually, no, fast forward to September 24th, I think it was. I had to go get a few more clips. The video wasn't quite done. So I had to go to Northgate. I had to film a bunch of stuff late at night till about 1 a.m. or however late it was, go back to Temple, get up early the next morning, turn around and drive to Lubbock because I had a gig up there. So my college roommate and I drove to Lubbock the next morning, and then we went and stayed on their version of Northgate. It's called Broadway.
Right.
And they kind of have 2 up there. They've got Broadway and they got where Blue Light is in the Buddy Holly district. So we went to Broadway and a few other places. And keep in mind, they were playing Texas. So this was like the big event of the year. There are people everywhere. The Saddle Tramps are doing the guarding thing. And we stayed up till 3 that night. And then we got up bright and early the next morning, went to Pancake House, and we went to the Texas game. Right. Now, I couldn't yell because I had a show that night. And I had just gotten done doing a music video. I'm already losing my voice. We're watching this game that goes into overtime. Tech beat Texas for the first time since 2008. I mean, it was an awesome day.
Right.
But then by the time we got to the gig and I had to warm up my voice started going out. I was like, oh. So I got through it and I sounded okay. But, man, you talk about a long day. 2 days. That was a trip. So most of what I remember from the music video is actually the 24 hours after the video. But I hope Aggies enjoy it. It almost hit 1,000 views this week. So, Aggies, if y'all go to Garrett Smith Music and watch Northgate Nights, I would appreciate it.
Go put it on a loop. Let's get him to 1,000.
Let's do it. Let's get it to 10,000.
Yeah, why not?
Let's do it. 12,000. We'll do an Aggie number.
And we'll link it down in the description. We'll link that one and the Port Aransas one.
Awesome. Thank you.
But let's see. Checking my doc here to see if we had any more political. What are some of your other hobbies outside of music that you're passionate about? I know you mentioned you have that career in real estate, but also I know you did a podcast for a while, didn't you?
Yeah, I've thought about bringing it back. I don't know if I will. That's kind of up in the air. If I do, it'll be kind of like this. It'll be a lot more video interviews because we didn't have many of those before. I think my only video interviews I did, the guy that produced my last album, interviewed Vanessa Lynn Bird on video, and then Rita Pearl and Becca Bowen, who are a couple of influencers in Nashville. I think actually Becca's was on the phone, so Rita, we did a video interview, but it's a lot more fun, I think, to do it this way. Yeah. And so yeah, podcasting a little bit. I'm on a podcast called Purple Gold and Getting Old with a buddy from college. So it's about our undergrad, and we track down people that we knew in college, and we're like, where are they now? So that one's been a lot of fun to get to connect with some people. Writing, because I did a lot of writing, like journalistic writing, as both a job and as a part of my undergraduate studies. And I have been working on an autobiographical book about my undergrad for on and off for about 12 years. I wrote it a long time ago. I've been fine tuning it. So I'm working on the last edit draft of that right now and would love to try to get that published. And so it's working on more writing. Music, writing, different kinds of creative ideas. And I used to do a lot of art growing up, and so it's kind of like, man, at some point I'd love to do some more creating and graphic design, that kind of stuff. Anywhere that you can create content, it seems like. Yeah. Kind of find your passion, huh? That and just travel. I mean, there's some places I've been wanting to travel and haven't gotten to, and that's one thing I do love about live music is just getting to go to new places. But I've been dying to get outdoors more this past year. Like I want to go to Caddo Lake again out in East Texas. Out at Karnak near Marshall. I want to go back to the mountains at El Paso. Anyone that says Texas doesn't have mountains is lying. We do. They just don't have snow. So Franklin Mountains in El Paso, I really want to go hike those again and see the Marfa lights. And if you've heard my song Lone Star Map, basically I want to go do all that stuff again. Yeah.
And lastly, I'll just say we talk a lot of music. We also talk a lot of sports here on this podcast. What are some of your favorite Aggie sports-related memories from any of the Aggie sports, any event that you just are fond of from your time in school there, maybe even after that you witnessed?
Oh, man, just all those games I went to as growing up. My dad took me to. Now, my first 3 games were actually at Tech. So I grew up in Amarillo, and traveling to College Station was difficult. So my first few were in Lubbock. We didn't win any of those games because it was the Mike Leach era, rest in peace. But, I still had fun because I was getting to go to a game. And finally went to a game at Kyle Field in 2002 where we also lost to Tech because of Mike Leach. But it was all of those were just fun. I love tradition. And in the state of Texas, I would argue, A&M's the pinnacle of traditions. That's why they call us a cult.
Absolutely.
Right there in second place is Texas Tech, but most people don't realize it because of how far away it is. And so getting to go to those 2 schools as my intro to college sports, it kind of ruined other stadiums for me.
Right.
Which I do have a stadium bucket list. I want to go to all the FBS schools in Texas. I have 3 left, and so I'm trying to get those knocked out in the next couple of years. But A&M sports memories that are my favorite, I would just have to say and I did Section 203 when I was in grad school with the baseball group. Shout out to Rob White, Brian Pfeiffer, Travis Holm, all those guys. And I was not a Reed Rowdy, but I would go over to the student section to make sure whatever the Reed Rowdies were doing, I wanted to make sure I was supporting them.
Yeah, I was a officer captain in Reed Rowdies. That was a lot of fun.
What year was that?
Which year?
Yeah, what year were you a captain?
Oh, I was well, let's see. I was at A&M from 2014 to 2019. That victory lap, class of 18, graduate 19. But I was in Rowdies from 15 through 19.
Nice. Did you go to Waco for the game at Baylor during that time?
I did not know.
There was a group of Reed Rowdies there, and at one point there was kind of a lull in the game, so I tried to start the beat the hell chant, and they all looked at me funny because it was the girlfriends that they brought stood up to do it, and they were like, "Oh, we're too cool for this." So it ended up being a total bomb. But yeah, I think my favorite game, strangely, was actually at Texas in 2010. Because we didn't know it was the last time we were going to play there for over a decade. We just thought, oh, it's the Thanksgiving game. And I have never been cussed at, almost assaulted, I'm not even exaggerating. A little kid ran up and bit my friend in the arm and his parent let him. I mean, it was just Texas friends. I'm sorry. Y'all have the worst fans in a stadium in Texas. And I say that with all due respect, because most graduates that went there are nice people, but it's the general public there that, especially Twitter. But yeah, I would say after enduring that and the ice cold, enduring that for 3 hours, we won by 1 touchdown. And you talk about mad people. I mean, they were angry. Half of them left in the third quarter when we were up by 10. But at the end, security held us in the stadium so they could clear the home crowd out. And then the band started playing the War Hymn again, so we just started singing. And they're like, okay, well, now y'all need to leave. So they escort the Aggie fans out so we don't get beat up. And then we just paraded through downtown Austin singing the War Hymn on repeat until we found our car because we weren't sure the car would be there. And that was just such a cool moment. I don't ever want to go to another game in Austin because you can't beat that experience we had.
I just, as someone who came in as a freshman in 2014, I haven't got to, at least since I've been a student, experience A&M playing Texas in football yet. So I'm pumped for, there's, the negative side, they're coming to the SEC, whatever, all of that, the 2 takes on it. But I'm excited. I'm ready to play them again. I think it's good for the sport.
I'm torn. If the fan bases, if Twitter didn't exist, I would be very looking forward to it. The rivalry, the tradition, but their fan base has gotten so bad online. was it the Mike Tyson quote? Social media has made too many people comfortable with saying what they want without getting punched in the face for it. It look no further than their fans on Twitter. But
yeah, like
I'm gonna blow up on Twitter tomorrow just for trash talking. But no, it's just a matter. And again, I reiterate the fact that most graduates from Texas don't act that way. I'm not actually slamming them. So there's a part of me that does look forward to that, though. I never got it as a student either because I enrolled in 2014 for grad school. So I lived there before that, but I never got to experience it as a student.
Yeah, it's I've been there for baseball, and that's just seeing that and how quickly how different of an element it is. It could be a Tuesday night game, against Texas, and it's just the stands are packed. It's just it's such a different energy level when you get to play your rival, your in-state rival. So
I need to fact check myself. I went and watched. They scheduled a charity basketball game. Yeah. So I finished my master's online because I lived in Houston for the second part of that. So actually, so they played at Rice, and it was. You were there?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Who knows? We could have been standing right next to each other in that like end section. And that was. Do you remember how it was like that one fat bald dude kept yelling at all of us? It was like one Texas fan who probably didn't go there was hollering at all of us, and we're like, "We earned this, sir." So, but yeah, it was that was like I was so over Billy Kennedy's program by that
Harvey
point.
Relief. I think they did it for Harvey Relief, and you had like they had some weird rules too. It was like an exhibition thing. It was a charity game. I remember like they were allowing like 8 or 9 fouls versus the normal 5 or something. It was just really weird,
it was a bizarre thing. But when it's those two teams, they hadn't played since the split. Everybody was treating it like a real game.
Yeah,
but it was fun. It was fun, and plus I lived like 10 minutes from Rice, so it was an easy
that's
drive.
And
it's weird.
Drove down from College Station, so
yeah. Which is, depending on traffic, not too bad.
No, not too bad.
But it's, when I moved to Houston, I actually recruited for Tech for a while, so I was kind of double dipping. Hence why I was at the Texas game. And so people have kind of wondered, like, why do you root for Tech? I'm like, well, look, I grew up out there. They don't play each other anymore. They got a lot of tradition. I got family that went there. I like them too. But when they played in 16 innings against us in baseball this year, I didn't appreciate that very much because I'm rooting for A&M, but by the time it's 1 a.m, it's like, dude, somebody just win this thing.
Just win. I gotta go to bed. I gotta work tomorrow.
But I do miss it. In fact, Facebook had one of those little memory pop-ups today where it was a highlight video of one of the years we were at A&M, and it was 2014, 2015, and man, it made me miss it. Like bubbles at baseball games and bonfire, and we got muster this week. It was just it gets in your blood and you miss it.
Yeah, by the way, muster this Friday for
that's right.
Anyone who forgot.
Everybody go to
really
that.
Cool tradition. Yeah,
I love it.
Mm-hmm. Well, thanks for stopping by, for hanging out today on the Red Dirt Aggie Show. If you ever want to come back on, just reach out, let us know. We'd be happy to have you back. But I think we had a great conversation here. Should make for a great
absolutely.
episode.
Hey, I appreciate you. Anytime.
Yeah, and like I said, this has been Garrett Smith. Thanks for tuning in and listening to the Red Dirt Aggie Show. Check out his music on Spotify and wherever else you get your music, correct?
Spotify, Apple, Deezer, bootlegs on the street, anywhere. It's out there.
Yeah. So thanks for listening.